Hey guys, Sullivan Owen here in Philadelphia. So if you watched last week's video, I cut a whole lot of flowers from my garden and I talked you through how I kind of cut with color palettes and different size and scale of blooms so that I could make a composition that felt like something I might make if I could go to the market and have all the flowers to choose from. So if you want to check that out, I'll put the link up here. But today I'm going to make two versions of a hand-tied bouquet. I have a few videos on making hand-tied bouquets on my channel. My very comprehensive one is kind of 4 parts, which if you're a total basic beginner, you want to check that out. I go into a lot of detail about how to place flowers in your hand so that you can make an easy to manage composition. Today, I don't know if I'm going to talk through so much the step-by-step, but I will talk about the scale of the different flowers and the textures that I've chosen to complement the Cafe au lait dahlias that I cut. So, let's go. So I think a lot of people would think that hydrangea is a focal flower, and it might be if you were using big leaf smooth hydrangea versus a panicle. But I love this time of year when the panicle hydrangeas are just starting to get some color on them, and they're just one of my favorite flowers to use as a base of a bouquet. The panicle also really holds up to being a bouquet. So I know lots of people are rethinking their wedding plans thanks to just 2020. And, you know, if you want to do a bouquet that you can just kind of cut from home for your backyard wedding, I would say the panicle hydrangea is going to hold up a lot better than a smooth big leaf hydrangea. This one's already kind of dried and crispy, and that doesn't bother me, but I would say it would only really work for my bouquet. I don't think a bride would be super excited to have kind of crispy bits in her bouquet. The other thing is I'm going to use this fennel similar to how you might use a Queen Anne's lace or even like a baby's breath, but because it's such a spray form, meaning it has all of these laterals and bloom clusters on it, I'm going to actually use it earlier in the bouquet. I might put something with a really delicate stem in at the end, but I'm going to put it in from the back but kind of thread it forward, since this it kind of wants to tip forward a bit. Actually, I don't know that I need to have this hydrangea in there just yet. By using that now, it's gonna give me a kind of rough shape. So I'm gonna keep hitting myself in the face with it. It's gonna give me a rough shape for the overall kind of size and scale of the bouquet. This piece may be a little long, but I try not to cut anything too short at this point because, you know, when you haven't cut anything yet, you have a lot of flexibility. So this is burgundy allspice foliage. I'm in the process of relocating these plants, so I don't feel so bad about cutting them at the moment, because I'm realizing since I'm moving so many plants around that it's probably a good idea to groom them up and cut a little foliage off of them before transplanting them. I keep a mirror right there just in case. And then these are tomatoes which, you know, I think that that's part of the charm of everybody cutting from their garden. You can kind of cut whatever's available. These indigo rose tomatoes are totally overwhelming the spot that I had put them in. I had planted them really, they do taste good, but I had really planted them for eating, and they're just out of control. So I am laying the flowers in my hand. I always turn the bouquet in the same direction. Again, more detail in that hand-tied bouquet video. But so I can kind of relocate things as needed. I felt like this tomato stem, when it was over here, this was sticking out too far. I may end up cutting this off because it's looking a little wilty at the end, but I like the tomatoes right here. And you want to be careful if you're using a heavier fruit like tomato. You don't need a lot of it. You don't want to make a bouquet that's like a weapon. Well, maybe you do, but I mean, for the most part, I can't think of why you would need that. So I often think that if it looks good at this stage, which is really what I would consider the foliage and filler stage, that you're probably good to go. I do like to do this step and make sure that I like the shape and the overall style. I do think at the moment the dark foliage is kind of throwing me a little bit, but I'm going to soldier on and see, just because I do know how much it enhances the dahlias. But right now it feels a little dark. And the nice thing about laying the flowers in your hand that way is that at this point the bouquet is getting a little bit full, and I'm able to kind of turn the hydrangeas so they're enhancing the shape instead of dictating it, which they do tend to do because they are rather large. I worked so hard to remove the thorns. So this is Coco Loco. It is a Floribunda rose, so it is similar form to a hybrid tea, but you can see there's many flowers on the stem. And they're at all different stages of opening. I probably should have put this in before I added in so much stuff. I'm not entirely sure. It's so thorny. So if you are making yourself a bouquet from your garden for your wedding, just be careful using any type of, most home garden roses are very thorny, so be careful. You don't want to snag a dress, and be gentle. And by putting that back there, you can only see this one. So to find another place for it. And this, as much as I liked keeping this stem intact because it was very beautiful, that rose is just a little, it's in a place that's not really working. Generally, you want to remove the thorns before you have your hands full of a bouquet. I may actually put it back kind of where it was. I'm just gonna be able to pull it down a bit. And I actually left a few of the bigger hydrangea leaves here because when you are working with something so thorny, you can kind of tuck them around and they act a little bit like a guard for your flower, for your poor hand. That's another really pretty stem. So even if I'm making, when I make a bridal bouquet, I do tend to make my bouquets front facing, meaning I kind of picture the bride or whomever holding it this way. Some of those thorns I was talking about. But you do want to make sure to finish the back. And you are not in control of how the client holds the bouquet at all times, so you want to make sure that you're not sending them out with something that feels incomplete or unfinished. So just by adding in a little piece of hydrangea back here, I'm able to make it feel a little more complete. I'm using a lot of the cat's favorite flowers in this. Oh, and speaking of, here's one. I don't know if he'll be brave enough to jump up. So I think that at this stage, it really speaks to the part of my process that I mentioned earlier, that we're trying to choose things that enhance the kind of show-stopping flower rather than detract. So I may only use 3 or 5 of the dahlias in this, and it will still feel like a dahlia forward bouquet, but the dahlias won't be lost. We're losing the overhead camera. Well, this is the view to see it on anyway. So, just seeing if there's anything else I want to use. So I would say in terms of elements, the rose is representing not quite a spray flower because it's more of a smaller focal flower or smaller face flower. And by that I mean, you know, it's got a face, it's looking at you. Whereas the dahlia would be a very forward facing face flower or focal flower. And focal flower really means it's drawing the attention. So I think that using them judiciously. Part of the reason that I rarely design with sunflowers, even though they're such a prolific grower and so beautiful out in the landscape, is because I think they steal a lot of attention in a design. I found the varieties of the newer sunflowers, like the more red and plum and burgundy colors a little easier to work with, but I find especially the brilliant yellow to be very challenging to work with because they really do pull all the focus. So, and it's just that bright yellow color, that kind of forsythia, daffodil, sunflower yellow. It's a tough color in terms of pairing other things with it. So I find that they work best as a mix of all different sunflowers in different sizes and shapes, or as just like one or two, or, you know, if you're making a really big piece, maybe you can get as far as 7. But using a lot of sunflowers in a smaller design, you're just not going to see the other things. And as much as this feels like a large bouquet that I'm peeking out from behind, I mean, to me, this is the time of year where you can do an abundant, kind of larger garden style bouquet, whereas in the middle of winter, a lot of this stuff is shorter, so you're not going to be able to make something as grand. So I also think that that kind of is in keeping with this seasonality aspect of designing. So now the hard part's going to be choosing dahlias and not breaking them. So I do like this guy. Oh, sorry, we lost the overhead. And that's an example of like a very upright one. So it sort of works as the back of the bouquet flower. So many dahlias to pick from. I actually think we'll save this one. So anytime I can cut from my own garden with a lot of height, I'm gonna try to preserve it. And as much as this is an interesting moment to add it in here, it's not really using this stem to its like full potential, in my opinion, because I do have the height. So I think this is something I'll save for one of the container arrangements where I can actually get some use out of that height. And that is why I grabbed this hydrangea. I just knew that it would, oh, I thought I heard a crack. So you're definitely gonna have some casualties with working with dahlias. They dislike the tight-ish grip that you should be using whenever you're designing a bouquet. We've got another upright. Let's see, maybe I can use the hydrangea back here to better support it. If I break a second one back there, it's a sign that I should not put a dahlia right there. The other thing about dahlias is that the stems get quite heavy. So again, if you're, few people request a bouquet that can be used as a weapon, but you want to be conscious of the weight overall and trying to find a balance between the thinner, more delicate stems and some of those heavier stems. And I just think that these roses are sticking up like bunny ears kind of thing. So as much as I really do like trying to keep them connected, I think heavy. And so by laying the stems in your hand in an organized way, you can sometimes do fun things like find the stem and pull it down. But when you're using something that has so many laterals and things like that, it can still be challenging to pull things down. I think I'll actually save that guy. So I'm gonna tie it off just so I can put it down and look for any finishing touches. I'm just using floral stem wrap. It's kind of a waxy crepe paper. I'm not doing it super tight. I just need to get to a place that I can put it down. It was pretty slim pickings on the verbascum, but I think that would have been very pretty if there were more available. But I kind of cut it pretty hard last week, and it has not bloomed back. I think I'm gonna add a few little teeny moments of this Peach Screamer Nicotiana. I try to be conscious of not using too many things that pollinators really like in bouquets. Hopefully clients inform you if they have a bee allergy. But if they have a bee allergy, they're honestly probably not having an outdoor garden wedding. Yeah, I do. This is one of my favorite things I've grown from seed this year. I just wish it wasn't sticky. Okay, I guess when I said a few little moments, I meant I was going to use everything that I had cut. I had cut Gara windflower whirling butterflies, but I cut it because I grew it from seed and it's much taller than the other Gara I've grown in the past. But it does not look like it enjoyed being cut on a 95-degree day. So I'll try that again someday. So for finishing touches and things like that, I'm just going to add the stems in. Sometimes with delicate stuff, I do 2 stems at a time. I'm just threading them in and pulling them down, and they can go on top of the stem wrap that I've already applied. I'm just going to do another layer. Probably overdid it with the bronze fennel at the beginning. But now is when you go in and clip out anything that's being a little extreme. Pretty, pretty. So the second wrap is going to be much tighter. I'm going to go up a little higher. I am out of shape with bouquet making. If I ever get back to a schedule where I'm making bridal bouquets every week, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it. It's like, you can feel it all through your shoulder and your arm. And generally you're using your non-dominant hand, so that's also weaker. But boy, my arm is sore. getting to about the shortest moment in the stems, you want to make sure when you're setting the bouquet down in water that all the stems reach the water. I think I splashed myself in the eye. All right, so I'm gonna grab the other color palette and really quickly make a smaller bouquet that would be like a gift size, or something that you could just bring to a friend, something that might fit in a, you know, like a mason jar or a small vessel like that. And I don't think I'm gonna talk through it just because my arm is asking me to wrap it up. I think we'll use the zinnias as both instead of roses, since I don't really have any, as both the smaller face flower, and we might be able to use some of the foliage. Maybe. Typically on a smaller vase, you do not need as much foliage as I used on something like the Bridal Bouquet. But it does let you have a fuller look. I've been cutting a lot from my coleus this year. It seems to do fine if it's continually in water. I wouldn't use it in anything like a bridal bouquet that's gonna get carried around and be out of water for too long. And honestly, in the summer, if it's very hot and you're carrying a bouquet, you want to keep it in water as much as possible. I had planted a lot of the more pastel zinnias that I really like, but unfortunately when I threw them down on the ground as seeds, and unfortunately when my husband got into a fit of weeding, he weeded them thinking that they were weeds. So the majority of what I have is very, very bright, not really my colors. Actually, that's probably going to end up looking too dull next to the brightness of these dahlias. But yeah, so it was just, you know, it was an unfortunate mistake. Spoiled for choice. I think it's a good idea with gift bouquets to make sure that they're pretty all around. Again, you don't have a lot of control over where they end up, so you want to make sure you're giving somebody a gift that's finished. Really the only time you can kind of get away with like an unfinished back of the bouquet is like photo shoots, or for if you're designing, like I have a hall table that the flowers would be against the the wall. So that is usually okay. I do leave as many buds on the flowers as I can, but you can see it contributes to them getting all tangled up. Yeah, those high school, I want to call them high school, HS date. They actually stand for happy single because they are single row of petals. There's a whole bunch of varieties. I think everyone that has gardening channels on YouTube is growing this year, but I see them in the list that I keep, and I just think high school date, I don't, and high school flame. Those are the two that I have. Maybe, but then they all kind of work. Happy single kiss, happy single, yeah, it's just, to me, I see it and I think high school. I don't know why. I have not been in high school for a very long time. This is a pretty wacky stem of labyrinth. My labyrinth, so half my dahlia plants are not doing so great this year, and so much so that I'm not, I mean, I'll try to do a garden tour and maybe visit the dahlias. I don't know if I'm gonna have like such like an exciting, as last year I had so much enthusiasm for my dahlia project that it was pretty wild. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to, I don't know if I can do it this year because honestly, like half of them look so crazy that I'm not, it's just been a weird year for everybody with the dahlias. I would like something in like a brighter orangey color. But I don't really have anything. That bud might work, but then it's separated from its friend. So when you're giving a gift bouquet and you're making it as a hand tie, whether you're giving the vase or not, I really like to do this for smaller bouquets. I just find it's a little easier to arrange them when you're making them in your hand rather than, you know, trying to arrange in a typical container. So that's gonna wrap it up for this segment of the hand-tied bouquets, which then ended up in water. And I'm gonna carry on using up this stuff in hopefully a few palette combinations in a variety of vases, and that will be out next week. So I'm back to my every Friday posting schedule, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when new videos go up on Fridays. You can check me out on Instagram at @Sullivan_Owen, where you can see all the designs I've made this year cut from my garden. I'll put a link to some of my favorite supplies down below. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.